You've heard it said, "The heart is deceitful above all things and incurable. Who can understand it?" Jeremiah 17, verse 9. People use this to argue that humans are so corrupt they can't even turn to God. But if we read the whole section and look at how this language is used in Scripture and in early translation, there's a better way to understand it. Jeremiah 17 is a contrast between two real paths. The one who trusts in man is cursed, like a shrub in the desert. The one who trusts in the Lord is blessed, like a tree planted by water that still bears fruit in heat and drought. Then come verses 9 and 10. I, the Lord, examine the mind. I test the heart to give to each according to his way, according to what his actions deserve. Jeremiah 17, verse 10. So whatever verse 9 means, verse 10 says God repays according to actual ways and fruit. The whole contrast assumes the real fruit shows up in those who trust in the Lord. Why do so many English Bibles read deceitful above all things? There's a traceable chain. Jacob's name is linked with cheating or supplanting in places like Genesis 27, verse 36. That story put a moral shadow over the word family connected with crooked or twisted. So it's easy to assume the same sense in Jeremiah 17, verse 9. The Latin Vulgate casts the line morally, the heart is depraved. The King James Version cemented deceitful, desperately wicked. Many modern translations stayed in that lane. The bottom line is, translators weren't being sneaky, they were connecting familiar dots, but familiar doesn't always mean best for this context. Here's the logical snag. People often hear verse 9 as, all hearts are deceitful above all things and incurably bad. Therefore, humans are incapable of turning to God. God must save unilaterally, and not on the basis of anyone's ways or fruit. But Jeremiah's next line says God repays according to his way, according to what his actions deserve. That's not a statement about God bypassing human ways. It's the opposite. God judges actual fruit. Push the incurably deceitful reading as total depravity and you get this contradiction. If every heart is only deceitful or incurable, then the only just outcome in verse 10 is universal condemnation. But verses 5 through 8 explicitly describe some who trust the Lord and actually bear fruit. The whole picture assumes distinguishable outcomes based on real ways and fruit. And if you import a system where God saves some without regard to their ways, verse 10's principle, I repay according to ways, isn't what the text emphasizes. Jeremiah's emphasis is that God's evaluation tracks what actually grows on the tree. The Septuagint describes the heart as deep, not deceitful. In other words, hard to fathom, not necessarily morally fraudulent. That shows that long before later theological debates, there was a plausible, non-moral way to hear the line. The heart is profound, inscrutable. Put the pieces together. In the Bible, the same word behind deceitful can also describe non-moral crookedness, like a crooked road that needs straightening. Verse 9 ends, who can understand it? That question points to inscrutability. The human heart is hard to read, hard to self-diagnose. Verse 10 answers the question. God can. He examines and tests the heart and repays according to fruit. So in the context, reading the word as complex or twisted, rather than moralizing it as deceitful above all things, does three things better. It fits the flow from verse 9 to verse 10. Human beings can't fully read their own hearts. God can and does. It preserves the contrast in verses 5 through 8. There really are blessed, fruitful people, those who trust the Lord. And it aligns with the ancient Greek rendering deep, and with other biblical uses where the idea is crookedness or complexity, not necessarily fraudulence. So what is Jeremiah 17:9 saying? It is saying that the human heart is not a straight line. It's twisted, wounded, hard to read, even by ourselves. It is not saying that no one can ever trust God or bear real fruit. Jeremiah just told you that some do, and that God repays according to the ways and fruit. In short, the verse is more about our limited self-knowledge than about an absolute metaphysical depravity that makes trust and fruit impossible. Jeremiah 17:9 isn't a brick wall. It's a warning light. Don't trust human strength on your own self-diagnosis. Do trust the Lord, who sees the heart as it truly is and who judges with perfect clarity. Under his eye, real fruit is seen, weighed, and rewarded.